Hello. Hi, everybody. How are you all doing today? Today is day 2 of the challenge. I hope we're ready. Are we ready? Super. So, was really nice connecting with you all yesterday. Quite engaging. I hope you were able to take something away and actually implement it into your daily lives. So, today is day 2. We've got today and tomorrow to go. So, yesterday, we talked about 3 main tips, and we talked about the being present, showing gratitude, and then forgiveness. Now, the entire concept we looked at yesterday looks at some very important aspects of ourselves. But as we know, our lives, our existence is really based on you having the awareness of who you are. So who are we as human beings? Who are we? What are we made up of? So we're made up of the spirit, the soul, the mind, and the body. Now, while it is very, very important that you understand this concept, many people are not 100% aware of all these that they have that makes the whole of them. We're all aware of the body. I mean, this is my body. You can touch it, it's material. So it's not abstract in that sense. So you would want to say, oh, yeah. I can feel my body, I can see my body, I can care for my body. Now, that's a very easy concept, which we'll kind of go into later during the as we progress. Now, yesterday, the things we talked about were more on the aspect of caring or being aware of your soul and your spirit. So, because when you are mindful, when you are showing gratitude, sometimes you have to actually make that conscious effort to be in the presence of God, of the higher force, the higher being that you are accountable for, that you feel you owe some level of accountability. And obviously, the way you feel, that's where your soul comes in. Okay? So, having said that, we're going to move on to the third aspect, which is the mind. Now, today, we're moving on to 2 main points, the 2 key points I talked about earlier. So the first one we're going to talk about is stop ants and rats. Now, I know that sounds a bit weird. You'll be like, what? Ants and rats? Now, we're not talking about the living creatures. We're not talking that you should do anything to the ants and rats. Not at all. But we'll talk about that in more detail. And then the second one is journaling, which is what we'll get into. Now, ANTS is an acronym, a short form for automatic negative thoughts. And RATS means regulating all thoughts. Okay, so having described that very, very briefly, we're just going to move on to what the mind is. What's your mind? What do you think makes up your mind? And then you've also heard about your brain. So that's where many people kind of get a little bit confused, because you go, oh, my mind, I mean, what's that? And what's my brain? And I mean, I use my brain to think, but then you hear about people talking about your mind, and then people get a bit confused. But there's really no point of confusion there. What it is one important thing is the brain is something you can touch, it's something concrete. The mind, on the other hand, is more abstract. You can't touch your mind. You can perceive what you have in your mind, but you can't, it's not a concrete thing. Now, apart from that, the mind is not encompassed by the brain. The brain is one structure, but it doesn't tell you everything about your mind. The mind is a lot more more extensive than the concept of the brain. Now, someone has described it as a set of faculties for thinking, for perception, for cognition, for understanding, for feeling. So there's an emotional component that is assigned to your mind, which is a very useful thing to be aware of. When you have you're thinking about something, thoughts are constantly flowing through. They are generated in the mind, and then they are processed and kind of go through in your brain. Now, moving away from the mind just a little bit into the brain structure. Now, this is part I like. I love the human brain. It's an amazing supercomputer. But when we talk about the human brain, we've got the different parts. Now, I'm not just going to go into the anatomy of it, but rather I'll go into the functionality of it, just very, very briefly, not too in-depth. When you notice something, when something happens that upsets you, because I mean, I'm talking from that point because we're talking about emotional overwhelm, especially when you've experienced a loss. When you have something that has happened that has upset you, there is a part of your body, a part in the brain called the amygdala. Now, it is a very interesting structure in the sense that it's always on the lookout. It's always there to protect you. Its aim is to keep you alive at all costs. So when something happens, it just goes, what's wrong? What's wrong? Okay, yeah, panic and run, panic and run. That's the way it works. Unfortunately, while it's doing that, keeping you safe, it can make you panic when there is absolutely nothing to panic about. Now, having said that, when you have the amygdala going that way, it overrides the entire part of your reasoning brain. So the neocortex, which is the new part of the brain, the more evolved part of the brain that helps us to think and make decisions and plan and all those things, that part is overshadowed and it doesn't react as quickly as the amygdala. So before it can get together to say, so what's actually going on? Let me process this situation. You might have reacted in a way, either in anger, in fear, you would have run away. Some people would lash out and shout. Some people will say things that they can't take back, which really is a very difficult situation, but that's the way it works. And understanding that helps you to be kinder to yourself, to understand that the fact that I lashed out at that point does not mean I'm such a bad person. Okay. Now, the second thing is it also helps you to be more understanding towards other people. So when you see someone lashing out, someone getting angry, someone frightened and actually breaking down, you're more empathetic to how they are feeling and what they're going through at that time. Right. So now that we've talked a little bit about the amygdala, there is another part of you in the brain which helps with memory, mostly long-term memory. So if something has happened to you, it gets stored in the hippocampus area. Now, this helps you to recognize something. For example, let's just assume that we're all sat in where, if COVID allows, we're all sat in a public place, so we're all sat down, and we suddenly start to smell something that smells like smoke. And then, what's that smell? Something's burning. Now, obviously, your amygdala goes, oh, what's that? Now, assuming you had in the past been in a burning building, or you have witnessed a burning take place, that sense of smell, that's what you've smelled, will bring back that memory of, oh my goodness, this is how it was when I smelled a burning building. This is how it felt when I was in a similar situation. So it brings that memory, and it also reinforces your reaction to everybody run out of here kind of thing. or whatever lesson you might have learned from that past experience. So that's why sometimes when something happens to you, you go, oh, I'm not going to let that happen again. It gets stored so that it protects you. So that's just a little bit about the brain. So because once you understand how the brain works, you understand how these thoughts come in. Now, thoughts are automatic. You don't have to say, okay, so now, right, I'm just going to start sitting down to generate the thoughts. No, the thoughts are just there. They're doing their own thing. If you're sat down, thoughts will come to you. If you're laid down, thoughts will come to you. You can't really say, go away, thoughts, I don't want you now. You can focus on something else, like we talked about in the mindfulness section, but the thoughts are always there. So they're automatic thoughts. Now, thoughts on their own are fine. It's the interpretation we give to the thoughts that give a different meaning to whether it's a positive or a negative thought. Now, we're going to go to the main key point that we're talking about today: stopping ants, automatic negative thoughts. Now, that term was coined by American psychiatrist Dr. Daniel Amen, whose work I really admire a lot. And what happens is when you have these thoughts coming through, things like you're not good enough, you're a failure, you can't do it, your world is crashing down, you're going to die in poverty, you know, things like you can just imagine all those negative thoughts that come through your mind and make you feel less than your real self. So when you have thoughts like that, it is very, very difficult for you to actually function, especially when you believe those thoughts. So how do you stop those ants? First of all, you need to recognize them. You need to identify them as negative thoughts, as automatic negative thoughts. And when you identify them, you challenge them. Don't just accept them for what they are. Oh, you're so horrible, you're useless, you can't amount to anything. Yes, I'm useless, I can't. No, that's not the spirit. What you need to do, really? Then there are two key questions you ask when you're challenging these thoughts. Number one question: is this thought true? Then the second question: am I absolutely sure that this thought is true? So we'll give an example. Let's say you were in a relationship and it came to an end and you felt, I'm so useless. Yeah, nobody would ever like me. I can't, you see, this person has just rejected me yet again, maybe after several people that have rejected you in the past. And then you go, oh yes, I'm useless. There's nothing worthy within myself. That's where you stop. And then you look at it and say, is this thought true? I'm really not worthy? Really? Is that true? And most of the time, if you really ask yourselves if this thought you're having is true, it helps you. And being truthful to yourself, you say, no, it's not. Because you've got this person and that person and that person and that person that like me. Oh, good. So I'm not all bad. Okay. Then the thing keeps coming to you, this negative thoughts keep coming, and then you go, am I absolutely sure that this thought is true? You say, no, it's not true. Good. If you are able to establish that, then that thought, you can squash it and forget about it. You can kind of put it in the back of your mind, no, you're not true. I don't believe you. This is not what's happening in my life. This is not a true representation of what I am and who I am. And that's exactly how you can kind of stop these ants. Now, when you have these ants coming through, you tend to worry because when you think about something long enough, it becomes a belief because you start to believe what you think. They say, as a man thinketh, so is he. That's the reason why you need to be extra careful about what you think and how you think about these things. When you constantly have these negative thoughts, sometimes it's generated from within you based on past experiences or based on what has happened and the situation you're going through. Or sometimes it's based on what maybe someone has said to your hearing. Now, this person said something, and suddenly you have this thought, yeah, you see, that person even agrees that I'm absolutely not useful, or something like that, something as vague as that. And that's kind of repeats in your head until it gets to a point, it becomes a belief, and that is what we call a limiting belief. I think it was Henry Ford that said, if you believe you can or believe you can't, you are right. Can you imagine? So if you believe that you can do something, you are right. If you believe that you cannot do something, you are right. So what would you rather do? Do you want to do something? Do you want to make a change? Do you want to be better? Do you want to live a fuller life? You can and you will if you choose to believe that you can. So that is where our power lies. We are so powerful. I mean, as wonderfully made as we are by God, we are so powerful. All these things are within our reach. But sometimes we get to that point, even sometimes it's like almost like a limiting belief as well. Like, I'm so hopeless. This is a difficult situation. I'm overwhelmed. And then it just kind of buries you in that difficulty. Say, all right, sure, no problem. And then you just keep feeling more overwhelmed by what's going on. And you really don't want that. So, back to the ants. When you're able to stop these ants, you still need to regulate all the thoughts going on. And that's where the rats are. Okay. So regulate all thoughts. That's the rats. You know, we said it's stop ants and rats. So regulate all thoughts. Now, it might be a bit difficult, especially when you're grieving or you're going through a difficult situation, to actually be able to process what you're thinking about or process what you're relating to. However, that's where the next tool is going to come in very handy. So, when you have thoughts going through your mind and you write them down, it kind of takes the pressure off what's going on in your mind, the overwhelm of what's going on in your mind, and puts it away so that you can now think clearly. Now, you remember when I talked about the brain, when something happens, the immediate part of your brain that works, that comes to action, is your amygdala. Now that part just goes, panic and run, there's something. It's almost like fire on the mountain, fire on the mountain. And sometimes, yes, that's fine if you have like, fire in the house or a saber-tooth tiger chasing you, or you've got something that's about to kill you. Yes, that's good. That's a good reaction. But if it's nothing of that nature, and it's probably maybe something like a loss or a sad news that you've heard, you really don't have to panic, fight and flight kind of thing. No, you sometimes at that point have to process the thoughts that are going through, and that's where the neocortex does. So when you put down your thoughts, you try to slow down the reaction and the hyperactivity of the amygdala, thereby giving the neocortex, that's the thinking brain, the decision-making part of your brain, the time to catch up and now say, is that true? And that's where that dialogue comes in. Now, when you're regulating all thoughts, then you can ask, when you have a thought coming through and you've written it down, you can say, how do I feel when I believe this thought? Then For example, the example we gave earlier about you having this thought, oh, nobody's going to like me, nobody cares about me, and you've already asked if it's true, then how do you feel when you have that thought? You can come up with like things like, oh, I feel sad, I feel rejected, I feel overwhelmed, upset. Okay, write them down. So when you feel upset and dejected, rejected, and things like that, what happens? Then you then flip it to the next thing, which is how would you feel if this thought was not there? And that's a good thing to kind of be able to play around with. And thankfully, we are such special creatures that we can play around with these thoughts. So you can say, so how would it feel if this was not there? So when you say, oh, okay, maybe I would feel a lot, I think I might feel a bit more empowered, more less stressed. I will feel better. I might even feel happy if this thought was not true and it wasn't there. And when you have that, what do? You then look at that thought you're having and then change it to something else. Change it to another thought. Okay, nobody likes me. Why don't you change it to the opposite? People like me. And then you think about, how do I feel with this new thought? And you can actually write it down. Now, when you challenge your thoughts and you express how you feel based on those thoughts, you see, your brain has a way of recognizing good things that make it feel good and going for them. For example, I'll give you an example. When people are upset, you see them self-medicate. It's not as though they really want to become addicted to drugs or alcohol. No, it's basically a situation whereby you have people who are struggling to deal with how they're feeling. And as a result, they do something that gives them a temporary relief, a temporary um, kind of diversion from the way they feel about that thought. And so they temporarily forget how they feel and temporarily forget the discomfort. That's what happens. And then you find out that, yes, they're having this difficult situation or that difficult situation as a result of having self-medicated. So that's the reason why, in terms of boosting your well-being, we're trying to reduce the risk of you taking anything that would do you more harm in the long term or in the medium term, and actually take something that will actually enhance your well-being in the immediate term and also in the long term. Now, apart from these thoughts that go through your mind, do you know that sometimes people talk to themselves? I'm sure you wonder, really? Well, I think we all do. We have this self-talk. It's like a constant recorder in our heads that goes, should I do that? Should I not do that? I mean, in some movies, you actually see it. So someone is faced with a critical decision. They want to kind of decide on what to do, whether to say yes to a particular business deal or not. And then on one shoulder, you see the devil sat there. You shouldn't do that. And then you have the angel on the other shoulder going, you should definitely do that. So those are very funny ways that the movie industry has kind of portrayed that idea of thoughts of us talking to ourselves and evaluating situations. And that sometimes is the way we look at situations. Sometimes we could just keep, some people have a constant loop It's like the thing is just constantly playing. You're great, you're not good enough, you can't do it, you can't make it. And suddenly they feel defeated, suddenly they feel upset, suddenly they just feel like they are overwhelmed by the situation they're going through. And to be quite honest, it's not their fault in that sense, but this is something that we have a power to break. When you have a constant loop going in your head, that self talk, you need to call it. You need to identify it. When you identify it, then you can do something about it. And going through those questions we've talked about earlier, you can address them, bring them back to base. Oh, that's not true. And then see how you feel with them. Now, there is a very interesting tip that we can put into our way of talking to ourselves, and that is using other words. One of the very important words that I like to use, and actually I have advised people to use, is the word yet. Now, I'll give you an example of how that works. So, assume someone has got a boss who brings the job over to you. I want you to complete this job by tomorrow morning. And he feels that he can't do it. Well, of course, he can't tell the boss that he can't do it. So he goes, oh, this is an epic fail. You can't do it. There's no way you can get this done. There's no way. And that's what's going on in his head. There's some ways by which you can give yourself the ability, give yourself a bit of an edge. So you can say something like, thoughts going through your mind is, you can't do it. Or as it said in the first person, I can't do it. I can't make it happen. I can't. You can say, I can't do it yet. And that's where the power of yet comes in. Because even though you can't do it yet, it gives you an idea that, okay, so I can't do this now or yet, but I can learn. There's room for me to learn how to do it, or for me to gain the capabilities or the competencies to be able to do it. So, which is quite good in that sense, that it gives you that idea that you can actually get things done if you put your mind to it. Now, this is not just about you going willpower and things like that, but it just brings us back to what we talked about yesterday, which is being mindful. Let us be mindful of what thoughts we have going on in our minds. Let us be mindful of what things we are saying to ourselves. Remember that saying I mentioned earlier. If you think you can or you think you can't, either way, it is true and you're right. So if that is the case, that means you can make an effort to think you can. You can make an effort to think that you can. And if you can make an effort to think that you can, then you can achieve what you think you can achieve. So, having introduced that word yet, which obviously does help to change the context a little bit, I will bring the concept of the next key, which is journaling. Have we all heard of journaling before? Let me see what's happening in the chats. Ah, right. Okay. So, journaling. The way to put it is writing down or putting down or recording something. In this case, we are recording our thoughts, we are recording our feelings, we are recording our plans, we are recording our aspirations and things like that. So some people do journaling by getting pen and paper and journal and write. Some people are a bit more sophisticated and they actually have maybe an app on their phone or on their tablet and they just type it in because maybe they feel they want to password it, and because of that, writing it down will make it easily accessible to people. But if you've got it on your phone, it's passworded, nobody's going to have access to it. Either way is fine. However, what kind of things can you journal? When you have thoughts, like we mentioned earlier, one key way of helping you regulate your thoughts, one key vehicle to rats is having a journal and journaling. Journaling gives you a clear idea of what is before you, of what you can achieve, of what you want to get through to do. Journaling is such a great tool that many people are not using. Now, when we have journaling as a tool, you wonder what is happening. When you have your thoughts being put down, sometimes you can come back to it and it helps you reflect. And when you reflect, you see, there's this thing that lots of my friends, I don't know the origin of it, but it says hindsight, the vision for hindsight is 2020. So when they tell you that someone has got perfect vision, it's called 2020 vision. Hindsight 2020. That's the vision test for hindsight. Now, having said that, when you write your thoughts and you come back to look at it, you have the opportunity to reflect on it. You have the opportunity to learn from it. And because you have that opportunity to do that, you have the opportunity to make changes that would benefit you or benefit the people that are close to you or influenced by you. So, having said that, you can journal your thoughts. The other thing you can journal are your feelings. There's sometimes people say you name it to shame it. Yeah, that's a way to put it. But if you've got these overwhelming feelings, keeping quiet and not talking about it, repressing the emotions that you're experiencing is not the best way to deal with emotions. And that's why I remember when I was putting up this group and things, I said, well, if you can, look at, do you know that grief does not have to be so lonely, so draining, and so painful? And the reason why I said that is because many people think that when you're going through a grieving process, you've lost something, you've lost someone, you're worried, you're confused about what to do, you need to cry alone. Because the world, they say, when you laugh, the whole world laughs with you. When you cry alone. But that's not the way. The best way to go through grief is to actually come out and talk to someone you trust. Now, another way to come out is to actually write it down. Many of the great writers and great poets, most of them, and even songwriters as well, it was in the midst of the turbulence in their lives, it was in the midst of chaos that they wrote most of their great songs and their great stories and their great poems. Because at that point, they were able to put pen to paper and just let it flow. And that in itself is a gift. And when you put it on paper, or if you're going to type it on your phone, that's fine. Once you're able to journal how you feel, it kind of takes a little bit of the load that you're feeling. But it's even much better if you have someone to relate with, like a trusted friend or a mentor or someone who can listen to you actively. Because I know when people lose something or someone special, there is the tendency to go, oh, well, this happened. And everybody comes, oh, sorry, accept my sympathy. And they're offering their condolences, which is fine because, I mean, what else do you want them to do? They don't know. Sometimes they're even confused on what to say. But in the process of doing that, sometimes they may say things like, don't worry, time heals all wounds. Not really, because some people have been grieving a loss for years and years, and some people thought, like I said yesterday, how that, oh yes, I think I'm over this, and then something happens and they just tip back into that spiral of I can't get through this anymore, and then the whole circle of grief starts again, and it's very difficult. So, having said that, being able to relate with people who can actively listen and also being able to journal your feelings is very useful. What other things can you journal? Your plans. Now, I remember when I went through my difficult situation and I was just wondering what to do next. I didn't know how to go ahead and get things done. And I was just in a state of confusion. And I thought to myself, I said, well, I think I started reading all sorts of books and podcasts, and I just got my breakthrough one night when I was doing all this. And there were some questions that came across, and they were my answers, really. And that served as the basis for my Bonnie journal. I'm just going to talk about them very briefly, and maybe at another session I would talk about the getting clarity. But that was something I used as my journaling um, guide. So to get the idea behind it, because I like stories a lot, I'll tell you a little bit of a story. So, but I'm going to put you in the middle of the story, so you're one of the key characters in the story. So here you are. You have a wonderful friend who happens to be a neighbor, and he's traveling abroad for a week. Now he has a bunny rabbit, which is so cute with nice fluffy cheeks and the fluffy tail. And you're very fond of this rabbit. Now he says, "Can you take care of my rabbit for me while I'm gone?" And you say, "Sure, no problem." So the rabbit comes over to yours, and 1 week passes. You don't hear from your friend. He doesn't come back. Couple of weeks, nothing. Couple of months, nothing. It becomes years, and you go, "Oh well, Bunny, it looks like it's just me and you now." And then you don't hear anything. You can't even get through to him on the phone. You're wondering what's going on. At the point, it's been years now, and you've not heard anything. So, well, I mean, you're caring for this bunny so wholeheartedly, and suddenly you get a phone call, and it's your friend. What does he say? "Oh well, how have you been? I'm so sorry I've not been in touch. I lost um track of things a lot of things were going on. Anyway, I will let you know as soon as I get back when what's happened so far. There's a lot for us to talk about. But anyway, I'm coming back soon, and I'm coming to pick up the bunny. It looks as though I might need to relocate to where I am right now, but I will tell you a bit more when I arrive." And what do? Before you can say, "Okay, sure," and then go, of course, and get the bunny and say, "Guess who called?" kind of thing. You get a knock on the door. So there you are stroking your bunny and saying, "Guess who called?" And the door opens, and who is that at the door? Your friend. And what happens? The bunny jumps out of your hand, jumps into your friend's arms, and he goes, "I've missed you, bunny. My friend, I'll give you a ring. I'll call you back, okay? I'll call you back." And In the shock, he goes away with the bunny, which really wasn't yours initially. I mean, at that point, how are you going to feel? Kind of feel, I don't know, sad? That might be a way to put it. But if you can, you just put your in the chat below, just put a bit of how you would feel in that kind of situation. So having said that, um, that's where the bunny journal comes in. Because when you have got something, I mean, or someone, we all know that one of the there's nothing in life that is permanent. Nothing. Is it a family member, a loved one? They were born. At some point, they are going to die. Even we ourselves, at some point, we're going to die. When you get a job, at some point, either you get promoted or you get a raise or you get a change of career, something is going to happen to change things. If it's money, I mean, it could either get more or less. Things are constantly changing. People get sick, people get well. So you know that nothing is permanent, even though it is yours to keep for a time. You know that at some appointed time, you might lose it. Having that in mind, we still feel sad when the bunny goes. We still feel sad when we lose the person or the thing that we've lost. And that's where the overwhelm comes in, the emotional difficulty and the difficulty to cope with what's going on. So that's how the bunny journal comes in. So there are 7 questions that you need to ask. And obviously, the best practice is to actually write down what your responses are in your journal. Now, a journal could be something as simple as some people have like special journals. I've got one of them. But your journal could just be an exercise book, like my people call it, a notebook. It could be anything that has, of course, not sheets of paper wouldn't really serve as a journal. You want a proper book. So even a book with lines in it or without lines so that you can sketch, fine. Just have something to write on. So the first question is, what did I enjoy about being with the bunny? Now, no matter how bad the situation is, there's always something you enjoy by having that thing or that person in your life. And if obviously you've had such a wonderful relationship, you probably have a lot to write in that section about what it was. Maybe if it was someone, or maybe this person was really caring and the person was really nice. If it was something like, say, your job, oh yeah, it gave, I mean, I got money and, I was able to pay the bills, I was able to get nice stuff, I was able to go on holidays, so that was a good thing. The second question is, why did I enjoy it? So you enjoyed that time. Why? Because you felt loved. You felt cared for. You did not feel alone, and that's why you enjoyed it. Other things are, if it was something like money or job, you say, oh yeah, I felt the company of my colleagues. I mean, I really enjoyed the fact that we could work as a team. Then the next question number 3 is, what did I hope for in relation to the bunny? Now that's where what you were thinking comes into play. Now, most times, some people have aspirations that when they get into a relationship, it lasts forever. And some people think when they get into a job, maybe gets to a point, they get to the highest part level in that job, or maybe they get a better job after a couple of years, after gaining some competencies in that particular job, but now they've lost the job before they gained the competencies they wanted. So it just and it changes from person, it varies from person to person or from situation to situation. So it's you giving the best answer to that question. The next question is, what did I not enjoy about being with the bunny? No matter how glorious and beautiful and fantastic a relationship was, there is always that time when you feel, oh, I shouldn't have, I mean, I didn't really enjoy that. maybe is the fact that the inconvenience of having to stay up late because of this person's nature of coming in late at night, or it was a situation whereby you had to make sure that you did certain things, or maybe the person had a bit of a bad temper and the person raised their voice every now and again. So maybe in those moments you did not really enjoy that. And why? The next question is, why did you not enjoy it? So obviously, if the person was one that was raising their voice a lot, you'd be like, oh, that frightened you quite a bit, made you feel unloved, or kind of made you feel guilty as though you were the one causing them to be upset. So when you write that, it gives you a bit of clarity on what's going through your mind and why it is going through your mind, and how you're feeling as well. Now, the next question is, now, how do I want to relate with the bunny or the situation now? Now, most times when we lose something or someone, sometimes it's a permanent loss and sometimes it's a temporary loss. But in that moment, how do you want to relate with this person or this bunny or this situation? Then you kind of, at that point, you probably are not very clear, or you sometimes I just want this pain to go away. That's one way to relate to it. That's fine. Some people just go, oh, I just need to get my head in the game and get another job. That's another way. So you write down your response. Now, very important, why do you want to relate in this way? Is it because you will feel empowered? Is it because that will help you move on quicker? Is it because you feel the pain will be less excruciating? Why exactly do you want to relate in that way? Because some people, when they lose someone, they just go, you know what, I just don't want to think about them. So they lose someone and they give out all the person's belongings and they get rid of everything. And that's the way they decide they want to deal with that situation. And why do they want to do that? Because they don't want anything that reminds them of that person, either because the thought is too painful, or maybe it was just a very horrible relationship. So it's almost like, oh, good riddance kind of thing. It varies. People react in different ways. But what happens is when you write down and you journal your responses, especially with this set of questions, it helps you gain clarity on what next steps you would want to do and why. Because for you to be able to do anything, you need to know the why you're doing it. Now, when you're writing these, it's suggested that you write the responses to these questions once a day for at least 7 days. Why? Because with every different day, as the day progresses, things change. Your responses might be a bit varied. When you know you have got your next steps and something more concrete, it's when the answers to your last two questions are more consistent, and also when you are answering the questions without breaking down and being in a ball of anger or weeping of sadness, on any emotional overwhelm. If you're looking at what did I enjoy about this bunny and you're going, oh my goodness, it seems like a situation whereby you probably need to journal a bit more to get to that state where you're not overwhelmed with the emotions and when you're having a consistent response. Okay, now does that make sense so far? Okay, so when you've journaled your thoughts, your feelings, your plans, there's some aspirations that you can also journal as well. You see, like I said before, we are very special beings and we are made up of body, mind, soul, spirit. We have an inherent creativity within us. Whenever we have something needs to be created, it goes in layers. Before it's actually made, before the plane was built, there was something that happened. The idea was conceived in the mind of the person who who built the plane. Then what did he do? He put it down, paper. There is a first creation, and then second creation is where you now put all the bits together. That is why it's so important to write down your plans. There is some practice that has been very useful in helping people to manifest abundance, even in difficult situations when they think, that can never happen to me. Obviously, it's a lot of faith, hope, and pixie dust that we need to put in this situation. So, but you can't doubt and expect something to materialize and it will materialize. No, we still need a bit of faith. But one step to doing that, to achieving our aspirations, is actually putting it down. I know some people who at the beginning of the year say things like, well, I'm going to learn how to do this. So, the New Year resolution, I'm going to learn how to do this particular thing. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get that done. And I'm going to. So they make a very detailed plan, which is super. Sometimes the only problem is they don't review that plan until many years, many months down the line. So sometimes they never review it, and then January rolls by the next year, and what happens? Oh my goodness, they find out that, oh my goodness, I didn't do that, I didn't do that, I didn't do that. Okay, well, roll over next year, we'll add that to the list. What we do with journaling, my journal is always not far away from me. I'm always writing every now and again. Oh, what am I going to do about this? Ooh, write it down. There's an idea. And apart from just writing, sometimes I even draw out your plans. And the level of creativity we have got is really great. And because we've got that level of creativity, because of the breath of He that lives within us, we shouldn't take it for granted. We should put that into action. And one of the actions is actually putting it down, journaling it, and if possible, taking steps, reviewing it regularly, and actually monitoring whether we are getting to where we want to get to, whether we need anything to help us get there, or any liaison with anybody else to help us to reach that level. There is a movie I watched. It's actually based on a book written by Roald Dahl, Matilda. It's one of the movies I really enjoy watching. So we normally have this movie night at home, and sometimes we just go, "Oh, whose turn is it to pick a movie today?" And maybe it's my son's turn. He just goes, "Oh, so what are you going to pick?" Matilda. I mean, yes. So if you've not seen Matilda, I'll just give you a brief summary. It's about this girl who happened to be in a family that did not understand her very well. She was very bright, and she kind of consumed information at such an amazing pace. She always wanted to go to school, but they were not very keen on sending her to school. Anyway, she became she read so much and kind of pondered what she was reading so much that she started having this ability to move things with her mind. And she wouldn't touch them, and maybe something like the TV broke and something jumped, and she goes, it was me that did that. And people couldn't believe her. People who cared about her were like, no, it's not you. Don't worry. Don't blame yourself. She said, no, I did it. When she realized that she had the ability, she started to train herself, and she mastered it. You see, this brain, this thing in our head, it's such a powerful thing. Our minds, which is a bit more than just, this structure within our temples, is even more. Because what you conceive, you can achieve. What you think, you can reach. And that's why we need to be very careful about how we think, what we think about, and be able to regulate it in such a way that it would help us. So, having said that, one thing, couple of practices, make sure that you're more aware about what you think about. So, this is just rounding up what we've talked about today. So, when you're faced with any situation, any difficult thoughts or depressing or upsetting thoughts going through your mind, pay attention and ask those two questions. You remember them? Is this thought true? Am I absolutely sure that this thought is true? Those two questions help you to slow down that thinking process and help you to be more logical in your response. That's the first practice. The second practice is journaling. So if you haven't got a journal yet, I want you to go to the nearest bookshop. I think supermarkets also, they sell books. Get a book. Turn that into your journal. Write it. Some people have got journals that have got padlocks on it. If that's what you want, by all means. But you need a journal. So in your journal, write. One very important thing that you can use, which also links to what we talked about yesterday, is actually having a gratitude journal. Gratitude, like we said yesterday, is a very important thing that gives us an upliftment. It within ourselves and also to those people we are showing gratitude to. Very importantly, writing, say, 2 things that you're grateful for, 3 things in the morning. You can write it or you can actually say it. But something I've also discovered is when at night you write in your gratitude journal things that you're thankful for in that day, it helps you to rest and to sleep better. And of course, when you sleep better, you feel better. We're going to talk a bit more about that tomorrow, but I think it's a good practice. So if you can, if you've got a plain exercise book at home or notebook, take that as your journal and just start writing in it. It doesn't take long. Okay? So I hope you found that useful. Good. So if you have what we can do potentially today is just reflect on what we've learned. And I'll use this opportunity to say a very big happy birthday to my mom. It's her birthday today. And I'm so excited that she's here. She's able to be present with us, which I'm so grateful for. So happy birthday, Mommy. Also, today was supposed to be my grandmother's birthday. She was supposed to be 102 today. I remember her. This is the first time that I normally would call my mom and wish my mom a happy birthday, and I can't call my grandmother to wish her a happy birthday. But I honor her even today as we celebrate her supposed to be 102nd birthday. So we're coming to the end of this session today in gratitude, in thanksgiving, and also being aware that our thoughts are very important. We have got the power. We are more than able. Now, unfortunately, we did not see much action in terms of activities. So I'm still going to ask today, our homework, if we can. I need you to write a limiting thought. So a thought that you think is limiting your ability to function or a limiting belief, and write the opposite of it. If you can go live, that would be great. If you can't, just write it down. We'll have a look. We'll see those who take massive action regarding this. And if you do, we have some goodies for you. Okay, so have a look tomorrow, and we'll announce who's done their homework and what we are achieving. Was really nice serving you today. This is Duni yet again from Duru Academy. I want you to continue being well, staying well, being happy, and living the fullness of your life. Bye, everyone. So we'll see tomorrow at 10 p.m. British Summer Time. Bye.